Yeah, it sounds way better.
Sounds way better. Okay, awesome.
So we're recording there, and I'm going to go. Okay, just one sec. Okay. I could see as part of the Just Grow Academy, Diane, you made it backstage. Hello. And Diane, if you can hear us okay before we go live, that would really be great. I'm going to open the chat box. You could just type in that you can hear. This is Steve, test 1, 2, 3. And Ronnie, can you do a test 1, 2, 3?
Test 1, 2, 3.
How's that? Hello, yes, I can hear you. Good, thank you. It's always great. And I see, who else? Lulu made your way back. Some people in the Academy, we invite them. It's like behind the scenes at Juice Guru Radio. We invite them to participate. And even at the end, they can even ask some questions. It's part of the Academy. So we'll allow them to type in some questions. That sound good, Ronnie?
Sounds perfect to me. I'm all yours.
These interviews typically go about a half hour. Great, and thank you for that, Diane. And Lulu, welcome, wherever you're hanging out, and we expect some more people from the Academy to be joining. We've got about, let's see, well, we've got a lot more online in Facebook, but we're going to take questions only from people in the Academy here. Let me just pull up your bio.
Ooh, no, what?
What's up? And those in the Academy, welcome to the green room. I love that you get to see behind the scenes of how this all goes down. We're recording an episode of Juice Guru Radio. This will be going out later in the week, and as part of Juice Guru Academy and your support, you get to ask questions of these amazing guests that we get to connect with. You get to see what my life's like when I get to meet these awesome people every week, and I thank you for taking part in that. Everything okay over there, Ronnie?
Everything is perfect.
This is first time. Sometimes we have guests on that I've known for years, and Ronnie's someone I've been connected with, but we've never met face to face. So this is a great opportunity. Okay, we've got about a minute before we're going live into the Facebook stream, and we're going to start the recording here too. Let me just pull up one last thing. Yes, this is great. Oh, I'm glad you like that, Diane. This is like a reality show, Ronnie, you know?
Yes, that's good. That's we are in reality, or some kind of reality anyways.
Some sort of reality. And now we've got cyber reality happening here too.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, people like reality TV. This is reality internet right here.
Yeah, it's a little different than what's put out there usually.
So let me just, no, this is good stuff, right? This is stuff they don't air on TV because, you know, they don't want the truth to get out there, do they?
Yeah, you know, God forbid anyone got any dose of that.
Okay, now let me just check one last thing.
Mm-hmm.
And Lulu and Diane, go ahead. I see you're the only ones who've made it in so far from the Academy. Go ahead and type in where you're hanging out. I'll start. I'm here in Los Angeles, California. How about you, Ronnie?
I am in Encinitas, California, so we are actually pretty close. We're about an hour and a half away, I think.
Oh yeah, nice area.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, let's see, Diane's hanging out in Cincinnati, Ohio. Let me just find, and Lulu's in Centennial, Colorado. Centennial, is that, Lulu, am I saying that right? All right, I'm going to actually bring it into Facebook here in a minute. And I just wanted to pull up one thing to make sure I had it. The title of just to remind you, Ronnie, the title of this talk was, or the interview, The Truth About Aging and Maximizing Human Potential.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thanks for the reminder.
And as a reminder, the topics we talked about was creating hormonal harmony, eliminating calcification from the body, the importance of cellular detoxification, that's what we're going to, get out here. And of course, we want to hear your story and how you got all into this. And I always start with that, to get us warmed up. So
yeah, perfect.
We're sound good. I'm going to go out onto Facebook now. Now's the time. Let me just get out on Facebook. There we go. In the Juice Guru community there. And it's preparing the live stream. And let me start. We're not going to start recording the interview yet, but we're going to say hello to our friends in Facebook in just a minute here. It's going live and now. And here we are. Hello, Facebook, Juice Guru community. I'm Steve Prusak, and there's going to be an echo. That always happens. It kind of it opens the going live, and let me just turn the volume down there. Going live into the Facebook community. I'm Steve Prusak, and I'm here with our guest. How are you, Ronnie Landis?
I am doing fantastic. Super honored to be here with you. It's about time.
Yeah, Ronnie's been doing this a long time, and he and I haven't done an interview yet, and so this is going to be a lot of fun. And if you're on Facebook, you're getting behind the scenes. This is an episode of Juice Guru Radio. It's going to be going out on iHeartRadio later in the week, but you get to tune in and watch it go down live as we've been doing the last few weeks. And if you're part of the Academy, you get backstage access, so you get to ask questions. And we've got a couple of our friends from the Academy backstage with us now, and more will trickle in throughout the interview. And so stay tuned if you're part of Juice Guru Academy. We're going to take your questions. Don't worry. It's up close and personal every week. And one quick announcement for people in the Juice Guru Academy, we'll be having our masterclass, our monthly masterclass next week. That's Academy members only. It'll be in the Juice Guru Academy membership site. We'll have transcripts too, and you can also tune in live with Karen Ramsey, who's going to show us how to create healthy families. You know her?
I do. I know her very well.
Oh, you just,
yeah, I love Karen. Yeah, she's amazing.
So I want to let our Academy members know about that's coming. All right. Well, Ronnie, without any further delay, we're going to actually start the interview process here. I'm just want to make sure. Yeah, we're coming through on Facebook. Everything looks great. And I'm going to close my browser, and I'm going to. And I see Wendy has joined us. Hi, Wendy. Love that you made it. You promised you would. Thank you, Wendy. And Wendy, where are you hanging out? I think Duluth, Minnesota. Isn't that right? And Wendy, of course, is part of Juice Guru Academy. And so any questions for Ronnie and you're part of the Juice Guru Academy, we're going to answer them at the end. And we're going to start recording now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit my Pro Tools, because this is how we record for the radio show. And we are recording. And we're going to go live with our special guest in 5 seconds. 5. Hello and welcome back. Welcome back to another edition of Juice Guru Radio. I'm your host, Steve. It's so great to be with you. And on today's show, we've got Ronnie Landis. I've been wanting to connect with him forever. He's an integrative nutritionist, transformative coach. Let's say this is why it's good to record and redo. And I love, people usually don't realize things like that happen, but they do. And so, what will we do with the magic of editing? We're going to start again. 5 seconds. Hello and welcome back. Welcome back to another edition of Juice Guru Radio. I'm your host, Steve, and on today's show, we've got Ronnie Landis. I've been wanting to connect with him forever. He's an integrative nutritionist, transformation coach, and human behavioral specialist. His work focuses on engaging the human experience through natural nutrition, lifestyle design, and consciousness engineering. He has so much to share. He's been educating people all over the world, thousands of people worldwide. Let's look at the show right now, Ronnie Landis.
Thanks for having me on. It's an honor, and it does feel like forever. I feel like it's about time that we hooked up here.
I agree. Thank you, Ronnie. Thank you for being on the show. And let's start with you and talk a little about your background, how you got into, redesigning your life and then inspiring others to do the same.
Absolutely. So I'll just give as much of a synopsis as I can. I was raised as a martial artist since the age of 4. In fact, my first conscious memory in this incarnation, if you will, is the very first memory I have is of watching Bruce Lee on TV, watching Enter the Dragon. That's literally the imprint in my consciousness, in my mind, that I can remember as a 4-year-old. And I was put into martial arts, and I lived my entire life as a martial artist. I competed internationally for a long, long time. I trained over 300 people in a school that I ran in my early 20s, and I pretty much just devoted my entire life to human potential, to athletics, peak performance, to personal development. I got into the personal development industry around the age of 15. Tony Robbins and Les Brown and Zig Ziglar and Jim Rohn and Earl Nightingale and Napoleon Hill, all the amazing success philosophers. And I think I became accustomed to pushing the boundaries of my human potential and always exploring the fringes of what's possible and upgrading my paradigm pretty much like every single day progressively through all the discomfort, through all the kind of strife and struggle that comes along with pushing our boundaries. I really became accustomed to that. And then when I was about 21 years old, I was on the path to international competition in Taekwondo. I was training as an Olympic hopeful for the Olympics in Taekwondo. And I had a knee injury that I was recovering from. And a long story short, I basically got the message that I could no longer sustain the intensity of my training under the kind of diet and lifestyle that I've been living. I was on a standard American diet, eating whatever gibberish that I put into my mouth just growing up. It's actually, when I think back about it, Steve, it's amazing that I'm alive. And it's amazing what this human vehicle we call a body is capable of processing and buffering as a way to survive and still operate around like some kind of semblance of peak performance under the most toxic, kind of heinous food byproducts you could imagine. And I ate whatever, there was really no consciousness whatsoever. It was pretty much a processed food diet. So I have to give reverence to the human body just because it sustained me all those years. But when I was about 21, I started to wake up out of my food stupor. And I realized that, wow, like I actually need to start changing my habits. I need to start educating myself on natural nutrition and changing some things in my lifestyle. And that's when I got exposed to this concept of organic food. I got exposed to this idea of like at the time, like grass-fed meat and like raw dairy and organic. And it was just like this whole new world. I'm like, oh my gosh, like there's this whole other paradigm that exists. I started going down that rabbit hole for a while. And then eventually I got into raw food. And I got into vegetarian and vegan diets and living food diets. I got really turned on to David Wolf's work, Gabriel Cousens' work, Brian Clement. And those were the voices that really spoke the loudest to me. The vegan and vegetarian and raw food message really, it invoked a level of even like dharmic, purposeful energy behind the diet message, where it's no longer just about a diet anymore. It's actually about a life path. There was more of a mission or a purpose behind it. And that's when I really started to switch over to a vegan model, basically mostly around fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, fermented foods, superfoods, juices. Talk about juice guru. Juicing was like, I still proselytize everywhere I go about the power of juicing, because I think it's the most powerful thing for anybody to get right in the door. And what really did it for me, Steve, was I was still competing as an athlete. About a year into raw food, I was detoxing. I didn't know what I was doing. I was getting thin. But I just stuck with it. It just felt like the right thing to do. And through a series of upgrades, I basically healed my knee injuries within 30 days of being on a 100% raw vegan diet. I started getting barefoot and walking barefoot up in the hills, and to get my alignment back, and also to get barefoot, get connected to the earth. And from that moment, I got this aha moment where I realized, wow, this really works. This is the real deal. And then that's where my life completely changed, from being this athlete character to actually going out and starting to educate people on the power of raw foods and plant-based diets and superfoods and eventually herbalism and all the things that I've been into over the last 10 years. That's really how my journey in this field got started.
I love it. We have such similar journeys. And, you hear it, I hear you talking about it. I'm like, yeah, and you have such a nice way of explaining it all, of how we evolve with it and what it does for us. So let's talk a little about that. What changes did you on a physical level, spiritual, emotional, all those other things, aside from the detox you talked about some of that. What other changes did you notice, and why did it ignite this passion to spread the word to other people?
Yeah, well, I remember early on when I was sitting in the park reading Spiritual Nutrition by Dr. Gabriel Cousens, and I started to tune into a concept, the subtle organizing particles, or I remember what it was called, the SOE something, the subtle organizing energy, that's what it was, the subtle energies of food, and especially living food. And I started to notice that there were subtle levels of vitality that I was starting to experience that I wasn't really aware of before. And I would start to migrate more into nature. I would just naturally, the more juice I started to drink and more smoothies and fruits and vegetables I ate, the more I started to get barefoot on the ground. I started to get bare skin to the sun. I started to find myself acclimating to nature. Whereas before, I think I was just insulated, and I didn't really, like all of us, we live in a boxed-in reality, artificial habitat set up for us, and it basically insulates us from the natural environment, which is always seeking to heal us. And so we kind of avoid our own healing until we have these subtle energies that start to guide us back to what I call our divinity, which is our just natural birthright of health and vitality. And so that was the main thing, is the subtle energies I started tuning into. And that's really been my thing ever since, is tuning into the subtleties of life, the subtleties of the body, the subtleties of my mind and my thoughts and my emotions. And, getting on the living food path and the juicing path was the access point for me to really experience that.
Well, the exciting thing is when we talk about juice guru, and when the word guru in India, it really talks about guru being God and self, really self, because juice guru isn't me, it's you, it's us, and it's the connectedness. And like you said, it's getting in touch with that, because the raw food and the diet and the juicing really does bring you back to, your inner self, and you don't really, you kind of carve your own path at that point, and we'd love to dive deeper into where you've been going with it, with the hormonal harmony and eliminating calcification of the body and the importance of cellular detoxification. Those are three areas we really want to touch on. The theme of this interview is the truth about aging and maximizing human potential. We're here with Ronnie Landis on Juice Guru Radio. This is phenomenal information. I hope it's resonating with you. Let's get back to Ronnie right now and dive a little deeper into those things. So thanks again for being here, Ronnie. So creating hormonal harmony, where have your studies taken you? Because I haven't heard about a lot of this stuff.
Cool. Yeah. So I would say over the last 5 to 6 years, I got really interested in the subject of hormones. Just a little context. When I started this journey from that point that I just mentioned, where I really decided that I was going to be about being an orator or a messenger for this message, I decided that I wanted to be one of the greatest nutritionists in the world. Like that just was, I just needed something to pull me forward, and that sounded about as good as any goal I could conjure up. And that's actually what has driven me so much in this journey, is to understand the nuances and the fringes of what's going on in the field of nutrition, holistic health, physiology, digestion, neurological health, hormonal health, and really this concept of longevity. And longevity not just being the quantity of years in our life, but the quality of the years in our life, and creating a harmony within the body where we actually want to be here longer. I found that to be a very interesting thing just to note, is that the number one fear among elderly people is that they're going to live too long. And you can understand why, right? Because there's this meme in our culture about the older you get, the more pain you're going to be, and the more deteriorated your body's going to be. It's going to break down. Your faculties of your mind are going to fall apart. Who wants to be here that long enough to see that happen? But that's a meme that we have based on, the lifestyle of the standard American lifestyle. So this whole longevity thing for me is about, how can we increase the quality of every moment, like a Taoist perspective? How can we be so present to every moment by being so in our body and loving our body, loving ourselves so much that all of our choices, all of our food choices are actually holy sacrament. It's actually a devotion of love opposed to an escape from the pain we feel, so we have to numb ourselves with food.
Well, that's a lot to take in.
Yeah, totally.
It is. And because when we can get ourselves in alignment of being in that moment, then it's not really the years in our life, it's the life in our years, or the life in our days. Right? Yeah. Everything can really slow down when we come present, when we're not living for the future or freaking out about the past, but we're in the now. And that's part of that journey, isn't it?
It's totally part of that journey, and I just wanted to set that up to let everyone know kind of where my heart is, because I'm not really as interested in the materialistic sense, although I'm very focused on the metrics and the science. But I'm coming from a kind of subtle spiritual perspective of, when we tune up the physical body and we get our hormones in balance, we dissolve the calcification in the body that creates inflammation, it creates arthritis, it creates all these physical pain points. When we free up the physical body of all this pain and we get in harmony, then we free up our spirit to actually make a contribution on the planet that's worthy of our life. That's where I just want to kind of drive that perspective. Not that anyone else has to take that perspective, but that's just kind of how I see it.
So basically what you're saying is, when we are able to detox, get this out of our body, does it lead to a level of clarity where we're able to really tune into our life purpose and really set out to do what we're meant to do? Because I know when I was on that standard American diet back then, I had no idea. I had like 6 different majors in college. I came out and I've had careers, and it's insane.
Totally. That's such a good point. Like, people are so dazed and confused about what to do with their life, right? And it's like, when you get onto a cleansing path, people think that it's like in Los Angeles, if you go to Air One or something, people get on these juice cleanses. I used to work at the Air One tonic bar back in the day, but like post Truth Calkins. And I would see people coming in all the time trying to talk to me about detox cleanses, this and that. And there's this assumption that it's just about physical health or beauty. And yes, that is a byproduct, but really what it does is it cleanses the emotional body and the mental body, where you can actually get clarity. You know, why would you need to take six courses on something, or whatever the situation is, to figure out what to do with your life? Because we don't have clarity. We're not really connected with our divine direction. And I found that nutrition actually seems to be the easiest access point, maybe not in all cases, but for me, certainly, for finding out what our core mission is. And then it's just the health and maintenance of the body that allows us to power through our mission.
Well, that's why I chose juicing, to focus, because that was the portal for me in my early 20s. That's what brought me this way. And I figured if I can get back to that and bring more people in, that's something everyone could do, a juice a day or a juice cleanse, and then they're going to see it's all about waking up. So thank you for that message. Yeah. What are some of the best ways you found to cleanse? I'd love to hear, I've done lots of things too, and I'd love to hear what you find most effective, what you're educating people about in that arena.
Cool. Well, I'll try to, with the time we have, I'll try to pin down this triad of detox, hormones, and calcification the best I can.
We'll go a little longer when we're, when we're in the matrix here.
Okay. Cool. So, so let's start with cellular detoxification. When we look at longevity, there's two things that have been empirically figured out about it, that extend longevity ultimately, which is calorie restriction. It's not nutrient restriction, but it's calorie restriction, meaning the older we get, we restrict the amount of overall macronutrient calories, meaning protein, fats, carbohydrates, and we focus more on nutrient-rich foods, which is like the raw food cuisine, things that are like water dense and are organic and less dense foods, I should say, and then like superfoods and herbs and spring water and that kind of thing, as a basic just kind of understanding, lightening the load. And then the other thing is cellular detoxification. So ultimately what we need to be aware of, if longevity is a focus for us, is that as we go through the aging cycle and we do more dances around the sun, we create metabolic stress on the body, and we create cellular waste products. So every time we eat a food, we are creating waste products that the body's elimination system and the lymphatic system have to detox from the body. And so even if we're eating the cleanest diet in the world, ultimately there is going to be some residue that's created. There is going to be some metabolic waste. And so the strategy becomes about how do we detox the metabolic waste that we're creating or that's coming in from environmental toxicity? How do we get that out of the body as quickly and gracefully as possible without creating any scarring in the body? And then also, and a part of that is actually lightening the load in our diet, because the less calories we eat and the higher quality calories that we're consuming, the less waste products our body actually has to create to buffer some of the toxicity that's coming from foods that, like processed food or excessively cooked foods and animal foods and that kind of thing, right? So that's kind of just like a little bit of a distillation on that idea.
But are there to it? Like, so if you're eating standard American diet or French fries to eating the organic vegetable from the tree or the fruit, is there levels to the level of what we're creating in our body when it comes to the free radical damage and things like that?
Absolutely. I mean, so the idea, part of the idea is that your body has built-in detoxification systems set up in it, right? We have 4 channels of elimination: our lungs for respiration, our kidneys for urination, our colon for defecation, and our skin for perspiration. And so one of the ideas to make this somewhat simple for people is that those are your main elimination channels. So if you keep those channels open and clear, then they're kind of on autopilot. You don't really have to think too much about it. But if those are all clogged up, then you might need to go and get a colonic or a series of colonics. You might need to do things like breath work and expelling type of yoga or qigong or something that helps push out stagnant energy that gets stuck up in the lungs and the respiratory system. Definitely infrared saunas are so powerful for detoxing the lymph through the skin, sweating, right? That kind of thing. More water for the kidneys, yada, yada, yada. So that's the basic idea there. I want to make sure let me know if I'm answering your question, because there was another thought I had, but I think I lost my train of thought for a second.
I just love everything you're saying. It's almost like a song. You have a great way of presenting. So
awesome.
This is fun. But, and it's good. It is to connect and have you on the show in this way. So thank you for that.
Cool. I do remember. Thank you. And yeah, I want to just kind of conclude that thought too. To your question. So our body basically, oxidative stress, which is basically like internal stress on the body. It's like rusting on the body, like rusting to a car or something. These free radicals, basically what they do is they steal electrons from what we call antioxidants. And that's how it kind of creates chaos in the body, cellular chaos. And so what we want to do is we want to inform our body with more antioxidant rich foods like fruits and vegetables and superfoods as a basic understanding. And actually, the more we saturate our body with those types of foods, it's going to actually create an antioxidation effect, as obvious or as incredibly simplistic as that might sound. It really kind of is that simple, without giving like a dissertation on what that means. You don't really need to know what that means. You just need to know that there's healing processes built within the body, and when we eat and live in a way that is in alignment with the processes of the body, then it just brings everything into natural harmony.
Well, I'm so excited because anyone who knows from the Juice Guru community, I've been posting images of the DynaPro, which is the new TriBest blender, and it actually removes the oxygen from the blender. So we're not oxidizing our smoothies, and they're lasting up to 3 days without losing nutrients. They're maintaining their. You can blend apples in a regular, even a Vitamix or anything. It's going to brown in about a half hour. In this, you blend it and it stays green, vibrant green for the next 3 days. So we're talking the next level. And if anyone's looking to get one, I'll hook you up. Just send an email over to steve@juiceguru.com. But have you seen that, Ronnie? It's like the next level.
Totally. I actually just ordered I just received a TriBest juicer the other day. And it's like the Slow Best or some. It's like looks like a red Corvette.
Yeah, the Slow Star.
The Slow Star, that's it. Yeah, and I love it. I mean, it's great because it doesn't have abrasive metal blades. It's not actually oxidizing the food. It's pressing it. So even the fiber comes out differently than it would on like a Breville or obviously a Vitamix. It's not oxidizing the nutrients in the juice. So it's like when I drink it, it's like I'm drinking life force. I can feel it actually coursing through me throughout the day.
That juice will last you 24 hours without losing nutrients, unlike a lot of the other ones, like in the juice bar. They're going to spin real fast. You got to drink them right away. The Slow Star will last 24 hours, but the Elite is the one that I'm going to get you in the future, and we're going to give you a family pricing. That machine, it's the twin gears, and it replicates the human mastication system, and it's got magnets and ceramic technology. So the juice from there will last you up to 3 days without losing any nutrients. I sold my Norwalk because of that one. So Ronnie, when you're ready, we're going to hook you up with that one. So we'll just talk about that on the road.
Awesome.
But I brought up the blender because before that, when even I was making like an acai smoothie, which is so rich in antioxidants, here I was putting oxygen in from the blender and oxidizing the food.
Yeah.
Here with these Dynapros, you remove the oxygen and you blend it up, and it's just, I've never tasted anything like it. And you could just, it's the next level in blending. It's closest to juicing of anything I've ever seen. So that's why I'm kind of geeking out on that.
That's so cool. That's so cool. And that's such an important point when, and that kind of brings full circle this point about antioxidants, because it's like a free radical form of oxygen is basically what causes this cellular damage in the body. It's actually what rusts us is too much oxygen in electron deficient oxygen. So like even when the juice, you could see it when you cut an apple open, or you take one of those juices that is exposed to oxygen, you see the discoloration, you see how it goes into, it starts to die, right? That's what's happening. It loses life force. And it's actually hydrogen that seems to be the antioxidant. And according to Dr. Patrick Flanagan, it's actually the hydrogen that is in the living juice that gives it its real life force. So that, I find that just kind of an interesting side note.
Well, thank you for sharing that too. I think you've really touched on a lot about the truth about aging and maximizing human potential, because when we connect the dots there, are you just saying when we start putting the right things into our body, we're going to maximize these other areas of our potential and growth? So that's a basic starting point, right? And so one of your original questions was just kind of like, what have I been up to in all these years, and where has my studies taken me? And that's a great connecting dot to some of these more advanced topics like hormones and calcification. I'll just try to make it simple for people, is that the starting point is the nutrition strategy, which is a high living food strategy. Plant-based is preferable. Whatever little things you do and however you balance that out for your constitution, or whatever you feel is necessary, that's stage one. That's like the foundation. We can't skip that. But then beyond that, we have a situation in our world where our world has been spewed with over 77,000 identifiable toxic chemicals, ranging from radiation and every form of pesticides and petroleum byproducts and mercury and every other unfathomable type of chemical that's been just spewed out into our environment. So we have to understand that we actually live in a toxic environment, and most of it we can't actually see. And the effect that this mainly has is on our endocrine system, which is our hormone system. So most of these, the reason why do we go organic? Why do we have to go organic at the very baseline? Beyond the fact that there's far more nutrients in organic food, it's actually because all those chemicals, all those pesticides, everything that rhymes with homicide and suicide is basically is a pesticide, like a fungicide and a larvicide and an algicide and a rodenticide, and it all rhymes with homicide, so you can kind of figure that out. But they're all endocrine disruptors, meaning that they all exacerbate or cause an imbalance of estrogen, fake estrogen in the body, and they push out our youthening hormones. So for men, that basically means our human growth hormone and our testosterone is going to get suppressed, and forms of estrogen that we don't want to be elevated start to imbalance. So the ratios get inverted. For women, your I guess your youthening or longevity hormone is progesterone, and the wrong kinds of estrogens will suppress progesterone and invert those ratios, where they should be like this, it goes like this, and we call that estrogen dominance. So one of the that kind of goes back to the importance of cleansing, because a big part of cleansing is detoxing all these fake estrogen mimicking chemicals. We could go deeper into that or what that means if you want, but the basic idea is that when we cleanse our body,
we have to liberate our body of all these chemicals that have a particular effect on throwing out the hormone signals, because our hormones are like a symphony. And that's why I call it hormonal harmony, because our hormones are like a symphony. This is the best way to understand it, to just simplify the whole topic, is that when we look at our hormones, they all operate in a ratio. It's not that our testosterone or progesterone or estrogen should individually be up here or whatever. They all have to dance together and they communicate together. So when there's a miscommunication, that's when problems can arise. And the simplest analogy I can give to people about estrogen dominance is that if you imagine an orchestra, you imagine you have like a group of, I don't know if you, what's the type of music? It's like classical or opera. Yeah, like an opera. And you have a whole group of singers. You typically have a lead singer, you have a backup singer, and you have a whole, I guess, symphony, right? And you have a conductor. Well, your lead singer as a woman is typically progesterone. Your lead singer as a man is typically testosterone. But when the backup singer, aka certain forms of estrogen, tries to muscle out the lead singer and tries to take over the show, that's when we have an imbalance in the communication. That's when the hormones are playing out of tune. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I love that analogy. Yeah, that's great. So, and so when we're talking about balancing them, are you using herbs too? Because I thought maybe you can include the top 3 herbs that we, as an herbalist, that you think we should be including in our diet and on a daily basis.
I'll say it like this. The top 3 herbs that I would typically recommend for women, and the top 3 I'd recommend for men. So for women, what comes up most of the time for me is an herb called schizandra. Let's see. I'm going to kind of intuit this a little bit based on who's listening. So schizandra berry is the number 1. There's also Don Quai, and then chasteberry. That's the other one. And chasteberry is also known as Vitex. And that has bioidentical forms of progesterone, which basically means that your body receives it bioidentically, biologically identical to your receptors of progesterone, meaning that it'll help your body naturally produce progesterone. And it's not the same as like a synthetic progesterone injection, if you will. It's actually a natural process. For men, I would recommend pine pollen. I would recommend ginseng. And there's different kinds of ginseng. If you tend to run really hot, then American ginseng would be good, because American ginseng's more cooling. If you tend to run a little cooler and you need more of that yang, kind of that burst energy, then Korean ginseng or Siberian ginseng might be more appropriate. And then number 3 could be Hoshu Wu. And Hoshu Wu is very, very popular for many, many reasons. One of the things is that it has a compound called 5-alpha reductase inhibitor. What does that mean? Basically, what that is, it suppresses a hormone called DHT, or dihydrotestosterone, which you can do more research on. DHT, it's basically what some people call a bad form of testosterone. It's not the type of testosterone that you necessarily want to be leading. So I'll kind of let people do their own research, or if they have questions about that, I'd be happy to answer that.
Yeah, I didn't even know if that's where you were going with the balancing. So it was the herbs that you were going to recommend as far as the best way.
No, I mean, no, the hormone thing is huge. That's why I had to include it in my new book, the Inner Alchemy Youthening Program here. I have an entire chapter a big chapter just on hormones, because the hormone thing is such a huge topic. It's not something that you can just easily gloss over and just say, oh, this is what's going on. I mean, your hormones are like the chemical messengers that are running the show. And there's so many kind of complications that can occur with it. So I'm just like I'm just really simplifying a few key things that people can play with that I think can make a big difference, but there's a lot more to cover on that.
Yeah, maybe we'll bring you back for a deeper training as part of Juice Guru Academy in the future. But love it. And so is there a certain brand you would recommend here in the United States when we're looking for herbs? Because there's so many different ones out there.
Yeah, great question. My favorite companies are Jing Herbs. I'm good friends with the owners. Jing Herbs is actually in downtown Los Angeles. Dr. George Lamoureux is a master herbalist and acupuncturist, and he really has created an incredible company. So they specialize in Chinese herbs. They're a great company. There's also another one called Raw Revelations. And Raw Revelations specializes in tonic herbs, superfoods, and different supplements. That's also a great resource. Those two companies in particular have the highest quality that I personally know of. There's a lot of other great companies out there, but those are the two that come to mind.
You're listening to Ronnie Landis on Juice Guru Radio. If you're part of Juice Guru Academy, you get behind the scenes, so you get to ask some questions. If there are any questions, we're going to ask anyone in the Academy to go ahead, type them in, or you can raise your hand. We'll even bring you into the session. You can be on the radio, on iHeartRadio, where we air once a week. So anyone in the Academy has that perk and opportunity. So we'll look to that in a minute as we're winding down here. This is so, I mean, I can just go on for hours, and I know you can too, Ronnie. So I'm going to hone it in and just ask, what are the three action steps we could take to start, aging the way we should, living in the moment, and maximizing our human potential?
That's a great question. Thank you for succinctly bringing that up. Okay, so the three things well, the first thing I always tell people is hydration. If you really want to get to the bare bones of health from a cellular level and really everything, your body. So I was talking about this thing on oxygen, hydrogen. Well, our cells respire or produce energy in a hierarchy of order. So for example, what that means is that glucose and ketones from fat are not the primary way our body actually creates energy. It's actually from hydrogen and oxygen first, and then we get energy from, glucose and food. So drinking high quality water and getting hydrated is the number one thing for health, vitality, and for longevity. And I won't go on any of my little rants about that. It's kind of an obvious subject, but it's one of the things I talk about the most, the power of water. And what I recommend people do is drink 1 liter of the highest quality water they can first thing in the morning. This is before your coffee, before your tea, before you eat anything, for sure, is to drink 1 liter of water each morning. I recommend people put 1/4 teaspoon of sea salt into their water. Swing that up in mix that up in a circle. You can put some lemon in there, whatever your deal is, but get that 1 liter of water every morning. And then I would recommend getting another liter or 2 even throughout your day. That's number 1. Number 2.
Okay, great.
Yep. Number 2, I think what's coming up for me is around this sense of sleep. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it's really about maximizing your sleep cycles, your circadian rhythms, and there's a lot of stuff out there on that. One of my friends and colleagues, Sean Stevenson, wrote a book called Sleep Smarter. That's a great book that really documents so much on this topic. The basic idea is, yes, you want to get enough sleep for you. For most people, that's like 6 to 8 hours. There's a lot of nuances about sleep that I know is beyond the scope of this interview, but it's not the same for everybody. And it's kind of, I'm kind of tempted to go down the rabbit hole of that, but just as kind of a bullet point in people's mind, making sure that you prioritize your sleep cycles is so critical to everything. because you could be eating the best food, you could be thinking the best thoughts and everything, but if you're pushing your limits, especially as we get older and we don't have our lifestyle in balance, meaning that we're not actually resting and recovering appropriately through deep sleep, then our emotional resilience starts to wear on us. Our mental acuity and balance and memory starts to wear out, and our overall sense of vitality and health just drops out. So I found that sleep, making sure you put a focus on sleep, is really, really important. Number 3, wow, this is there's something coming up for me around. Well, if I had to just be super blunt about it, it's finding what your purpose and your mission is and then living it. A lot of people in the personal development world and spiritually focused world place a lot of emphasis on finding your mission, finding your dharma, finding your purpose, and that's great. But it can't be an intellectual exercise that you play with yourself. It has to be something that we embody inside of us and we actually live. And that right there, and that's an important distinction, just because we can play games with ourselves all the time. We could be working a job that we do not love, that is totally counter to our soul's calling, but we rationalize it because it pays the bills, because we secretly are scared that we can't survive or thrive by doing what we love to do. And my experience has been that when we actually have the courage to let go of what doesn't serve us, we open up access points to a greater level of abundance, a greater level of synchronicity, and a greater level of fulfillment that actually creates health, in my opinion. The nutrition strategy supports and maintains health, but being congruent with our purpose, whatever that means to somebody, is actually, to me, what creates vibrant health in the first place.
Great 3 first steps. And if we can take that third step and break it down into one more step, what about the person saying to you, okay, Ronnie, but I don't know what my purpose is, and how do I find that out?
Yeah, okay, thank you. So I was working with a client earlier today, and I was telling her, you don't actually have to know definitively what your actual purpose is, because it continues to reveal itself to us as we go about life. So what I would say to somebody is that pay attention to what life is showing you. Pay attention to your inclinations and your natural tendencies, and start to actually be honest about what's working for you and what's not working for you on an emotional level. What feels good to you, and what are you doing every day that does not feel good, and you've been kind of just pretending, you've been kind of lying to yourself. We all do it. We've been conditioned to do it. What have we been lying to ourselves about, and what is actually feels good? And I think the simplest way to actually figure this out is to allow ourselves to be guided by pleasure instead of being guided by pain.
Great first steps. Ronnie Landis right here on Just Guru Radio. Ronnie, I see a few questions are coming in from the community. We've got someone who's going to come on live too. And before we get to that, how can our viewers get a hold of you, your website, and how we get a hold of your books?
Cool. So I have a website called ronnielandis.net. And I actually have my own podcast there too, called the Holistic Health and Human Potential Podcast, which you can find on that website or on iTunes. People can look me up on Facebook and follow my stuff there. I also have another website called the Holistic Health Mastery Program, which is an online holistic nutrition certification academy. So if people are interested in that, they can definitely look that up. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you, and great work that you're doing.
Oh, and then the books are on Amazon. You could just go to Amazon and look up Ronnie Landis.
And we're going to have links at juicegururadio.com, and I see Diane had typed in, please send those links out, and we will. And in the replay in the membership site, we'll also put the links there too, so you'll get those links, and they will be on the show notes at juicegururadio.com. Those listening on Juice Guru Radio, You can check them out there under the show notes with Ronnie Landis. And as part of Just Grow Academy and the Inner Circle, we do allow this backstage access. So what we're going to do right now is allow some of our members to ask some questions, and some have typed some in. We've got one who's going to actually join us live in studio here. I'm going to go ahead and unmute Rob. Rob, are you coming in? Have you got a question for Ronnie? Welcome to Just Grow Radio. Nice to have you here.
I do. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Ronnie. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep, can hear you.
Okay, good. So, hey, Ronnie, thanks a lot. Very informative. Unfortunately, on my end, I had a bad connection at first, so there's a lot of things that were breaking up on me. So I made sure I listened a little bit. Everything I got was really outstanding. I really appreciate it. Couple of quick questions. So sorry, Steve, if I take too long.
Sure. All good.
Cut you off. Real quick, when you were talking about water, you said you can put in whatever you want, but you specifically said sea salt. Is there a benefit to adding sea salt into the water? Is there something special? Is flavor?
Yeah. Absolutely, and great question. So in a simple way of explaining that, our bodies are run on electricity. Our bodies are run on electrical impulses, so based through our nervous system, right? So what helps to conduct electricity in the body are certain minerals or elements which are present mostly in salt. So if we look at the ocean is an electrical kind of bed of water, if you will, and that's actually what keeps everything alive. And that's what keeps our body vibrant. That's what keeps our cells electrically conductive. And so the point of putting the salt in the water is that it actually, from a water science level, it restructures the water. You may have heard of this term. It restructures the water. And basically what that means is that it reinforms the water. So if you take distilled water or reverse osmosis water, it's been ultra purified, but that water no longer actually has any information left in it. It's been de-informed or demineralized, if that makes sense. So the sea salt is informing the water with the life force energy, if you will, kind of an esoteric way of explaining it, but life force energy. And when you spin it up, it's been shown that it restructures the water. And what that does for us is that it basically hydrates us. In order to actually get fully hydrated, the water has to be properly structured. And so that's kind of the basic intelligence. Another side benefit of that, there's actually two side benefits of that, is that it improves digestion, because our stomach acid actually gets produced from salt or sodium. And so when we don't have enough sodium or salt in our diet, you find this with like very extreme raw food diets that go super low salt for a long period of time, people have digestive issues and they can develop candida. If somebody has a candida issue, it means that their digestive systems become too dry, and they need, or it's become too wet. And so they need, in order to dry that out, salt helps to dry out. In Chinese medicine, they call it a damp, wet spleen, which is too much. It's like a swamp. You know, it's like swampy digestion. Can't really, there's no fire there. There's no stomach acid. And then it also helps our adrenal glands. Our adrenals run largely on salt and sodium. So if we've been wiped out, we've been fatigued, we travel on planes a lot, we're gonna put a lot of stress on our adrenals, and the salt actually kind of brings our adrenals back into balance. So
I guess really also, even if you're just doing, say, sports, so say...
Yes, electrolytes.
So even after, or even let's even say like a boxer between rounds, water, right, that would be very beneficial. The more
Yeah, like the idea behind Gatorade is this kind of idea of electrolytes, right? But it's not really that. It's basically like artificial sugar and flavoring and colors and chemicalized electrolytes. So just really quickly, so everyone understands this electrolyte thing. Electrolytes are actually magnesium, calcium, potassium, and I'm blanking on the other one. It's funny. But anyways, that's basically what electrolytes are. They're actually alkaline minerals which are present in salt. So salt is actually a natural electrolyte. So yeah, you're totally right.
That's awesome. So my son plays ice hockey, and I know do you still practice martial arts? I heard that at the beginning.
Absolutely.
I've always been a boxer, but he's become a big fight fan. He would actually start Muay Thai. So now the more I think about it, for him, even in high, he plays ice hockey. His water, if I put some salt in there, that's going to hydrate him even more. So that's a very
he should be doing. He can even be taking like salt and putting it on his tongue and letting it dissolve in his saliva. Like those little hacks right there will be like game changers.
No, just sea salt.
Yeah, like sea salt, like Celtic sea salt.
That's awesome. I never knew that. So I could talk to you for the next 4 hours probably. So I probably it's a good thing I don't have your phone number. I had another question. If you can, is that all right, Steve?
Yeah, go ahead, Rob.
Okay. So then you talked about finding your purpose, which I think I couldn't agree more. And I'm starting to find that on my own. I just think I think you're very lucky if you find your purpose early. I think you're super lucky if you find it ever. I really think you find joy when it's there. Have you ever run into someone, and I guess you could have multiple purposes. You can serve multiple purposes.
Sure.
Because I'm thinking to myself, quite honestly, where I could look at it and say, I believe I have two purposes that are so far apart. I can't think of another way of putting it. But is that normal? I guess is that
I know I'm picking up what you're putting down. So just to let you and anyone else know that might be interested, I have created a very powerful mentorship company actually that I do personal mentorship programs and group coaching programs on these topics. Specifically, there is health related stuff, but it's mostly about this conversation right here and aligning. To me, what it really comes down to is how congruent are we in our life? Because we could put an overarching focus on like our purpose, but really I feel like spirit works through congruency. So the food we eat, the thoughts we think, the emotional states that we live in, the relationship and communication in our relationships, our level of integrity, our moral compass. If all of these things are congruent, then we feel fulfilled. And I think it's that feeling of fulfillment each and every day that is what we're chasing when we're chasing our purpose. You know what I mean? Like some of us don't have like this defined purpose, and that's okay. I think being a good human being, being a great human being, and being a loving presence and a contributor on the planet is purpose enough. And so if we're congruent with that and we just walk our talk every day, you know, we are led to our purpose. It doesn't, I think it reveals itself to us, but we have to be willing to walk towards it, just be guided by something other than our own mind.
Got it.
Don't you say, Ronnie, if there are two things, it should probably merge into one, because if it's two, then both are getting watered down.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, that would be more that's the kind of stuff that I work with people on. It requires a conversation, obviously, because I have to understand what drives somebody. My basic, for everyone listening, one of my mentors, Dr. John DeMartini, he is very famous for his value systems approach. And basically what this says is that when we identify what our hierarchy of values are and we stop minimizing ourselves and we actually live based on our highest priorities, then everything starts to come into alignment. So for example, if you're doing two different things and it feels like they're in like diametrically opposed directions, it's time for honesty, right? Like if you feel like these two things, there's one of two things that can happen. Either one of these things is taking you off your path and it's time to actually be honest and let go of what doesn't serve you and go all in on what is your path, or these two things, there is a way for them to parallel and sync up together. I don't think it's all or nothing. I think that we can have many passions, but it's where are we putting our focus and what are we prioritizing day to day?
Thanks for checking in, Rob. It's part of Juice Guru Academy. And there's a few more questions that came in, but we're going to answer them off the air. We've got to close out this episode of Juice Guru Radio. I don't know Ronnie's timing anyway, and we'll see if we can get to some of those questions. If not now, then after. But you've been listening to Ronnie Landis on Juice Guru Radio. I'm Steve Prusak. Ronnie, thank you so much for being here.
So much my pleasure. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the questions, and thanks for the fun conversation.
Yeah, we're going to bring him back. He's going to be part of the Juice Guru certification program, Juice Guru Academy Masterclass. He has so much more to share. We'll be bringing Ronnie back. Thank you for listening to Juice Guru Radio. I'm Steve Prusak, and we'll see you next time. And Ronnie, how are you on time? Because we have a few questions that came in. Are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, we're good.
We're about half past.
Yeah, we're good to go.
All right, great. So anyone in the Academy right now, you've got the link. Let's see. We'll just go through these questions and finish up. So we want to thank Ronnie so much for his time. And Rob, thanks for sticking in there. Diane, I'm 62 and wondering what I need to do at this age for optimal healthy aging.
Wow. Well, that's a big question. And it deserves a big answer. One thing I would say is, and this isn't a plug at all, it's just the honest truth to respond to a question like that is, feel free to go to my website and get in contact with me under I think there's like a contact me button that you can look at. If you're really serious about really understanding the answers to that question that are unique to you, feel free to contact me and consider us possibly working together, depending on if it's a fit, and that would allow me to actually realistically help you create a blueprint for yourself. But beyond that, I'll leave that up to you if that feels good to you. A simple answer. I don't know if you're into green vegetable juicing. I would say if you're totally in the beginning of all this, doing at least one 16 to 32 ounce green vegetable juice every single day with one of those amazing juicers that Steve is talking about that really maximize the vitality and the life force in the juice and don't oxidize. That's critical. And adding like a green superfood powder to your juice, like chlorella or spirulina, something like that, that's easy to take in. It quickly absorbs. You get all the protein you need from something like that, chlorophyll. It's gonna help accelerate detoxification, and it's gonna help slow down the aging process. There's a whole strategy actually of things that I've laid out in my book, The Inner Alchemy Youthening Program, that just released. You can find that on Amazon. That's something that I would be more than happy under a client-based relationship to actually scope out for somebody, because that does take a considerable amount of time.
Let me write that in the chat box. What's the name of that?
The book is The Inner Alchemy Youthening Program.
Youthening. Is that Y-O-U-T-H-E?
Yeah, like youth.
N-I-N.
Youthening, yep.
Okay, I'm going to put that in the box. I'm also going to put it on Facebook.
Yeah, and I mean, in a question like that, I mean, I'm so aware of the individuality. So there's a lot of things that I could throw out there. I'm just wanting to be considerate to one's individual. I don't know. I don't have any information beyond the age.
Yeah, and I love that we're in alignment with the teachings. And of course, Diane, you can get the template recipe at juiceguru.com/template, which is the green juice, the 32-ounce green juice, and you can intermingle it to create over 100 juices. But it's a green-based juice, and to add in the chlorella and the spirulina, awesome. Diane also typed in, how much salt? Should I add the salt to my daily water? And again, how much should I be adding?
It's a good question. So typically speaking, I recommend somebody do 1/4 of a teaspoon per liter in the morning. Now, you can do more than that. That's just a typical recommendation. If somebody has like hot flashes, hormonal issues, they have a candida-like issue where it's you're not digesting food. It feels bloating. You feel bloated. You feel very damp or very wet in the digestive area. Then a little bit more salt in the morning, like half a teaspoon would be more appropriate. So you kind of have to feel it out, but 1/4 teaspoon is the general recommendation.
Perfect. And just two more questions here. Lulu wrote in here. Any suggestions on the best plant specifically to remove toxins?
Oh, that's a great question. So the top ones that come to mind are chlorella. Chlorella is, I mentioned that a little earlier, it's a type of single-celled algae. It's one of the super algae, similar to spirulina, but chlorella has a little less protein, and it's the #1 source of chlorophyll. And chlorophyll is one of the best detoxification compounds. It's plant blood, really. And that right there, and chlorella has a specific mechanism that cages up toxins in the body and extracts them out of the body, basically chelates them. So chlorella is #1. Cilantro is #2. And you can have cilantro in your salads. You can juice your cilantro. Adding like turmeric into your juice is really helpful for this. Actually, a great recipe for this would be something like celery, cucumber, cilantro, parsley, turmeric, lemon, like 1 to 2 whole lemons. If you need a little green apple, feel free. And then doing 1 tablespoon of chlorella in your juice and mixing that up. That's an incredible cleansing detox juice recipe that is easy to do.
And one last question here. Should some plants be favored at the beginning of the detox and then progress to others?
So should some plants be favored?
Yeah, I guess you're saying some of the vegetables, should you go heavier at the beginning of the detox and then progress to other variations during the cleanse?
It's a good question. There's variables. I mean, it depends on the person and how fast they want to go through the process. One thing you want to be aware of on a cleanse is there's something called a Herxheimer syndrome, which is basically like a healing crisis. So if somebody does a full juice cleanse and they're not used to it, they can start kicking up toxins that were in the fat cells and kicking it up into the blood. And it creates this like shock effect if our body doesn't have anything to detox or pull out those toxins. So that's when something like chlorella comes in. That's also when activated charcoal comes in as well. Activated charcoal is another incredible detox supplement, which you can do on the back end. If you're doing a heavier cleanse, adding in activated charcoal is very, very helpful because it'll mop up all the residual toxins. Otherwise, those could stay in the blood and create more problems. So you just want to kind of understand those nuances. Yeah, hopefully that answers the question.
That green juice was celery, cucumber, 2 to 3 lemons, turmeric, chlorella, and spirulina. Is that what you had in there?
And cilantro.
And cilantro. Love the taste of that. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Ronnie, this has been eye-opening and phenomenal, and I'm glad we finally got to do some work together, and I do see more in the future, so send me an email so we could keep in touch.
Awesome. Yeah.
I've got a lot of ideas, so we'll talk more about that. Cool. And everyone in the Juice Guru Academy, everyone on Facebook, thank you for tuning in to this edition of Behind the Scenes at Juice Guru Radio. Our special guest, Ronnie Landis. We'll have all the links up for you, so you'll be able to check that out. It'll be airing on Juice Guru Radio the end of this week, juicegururadio.com, which airs on iHeartRadio. It's the only juicing radio show on the network. And thank you again for being here, Ronnie, and I'm so happy we connected.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for having me.
Take care. Have a great night. Thank you all. I wanted to make one more announcement in the Juice Guru Academy that next week we have our master class with Karen Ramsey. That'll be happening next week on creating healthy families, creating super healthy families with Karen Ramsey next Thursday at a new time. It'll be it's 1 o'clock Pacific, 3 o'clock Central, and 4 o'clock Eastern. So hopefully you'll tune in for that. And if you don't join live, remember that goes in the membership site. You'll get a transcript of that session as well. Last month was intermittent fasting. If you haven't seen that, catch up on that too. And hopefully we'll have something with Ronnie coming. But I also see you in the certification program and what we're doing with that. So I want to set up a call outside of this. Okay, Ronnie?
Cool. Sounds good.
All right, Ron. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you all for being here. I'm Steve Prusek, and we'll see you next time.